Folks, every year, in the weeks leading up to Rosh Hashanah, rabbis across the world ask themselves, what is it that I believe people need to hear? Perhaps no less importantly, what is it that I believe I need to say? And this morning, the first day of the new year, what I very much want to say and what I believe is important for people to hear is that we Jewish people, human beings, have more power than we actually realize. I want to devote my comments this morning to demonstrating how our tradition enables us to find our power and to use that power for our benefit, for the benefit of the people around us, for the benefit of our people, for the benefit of the world. So in this alternate universe in which I sometimes place myself, I come out on Rosh Hashanah and I start to sing a kind of gospel hymn, and everybody just stands up and starts swaying and clapping along. And so I'm going to sing a portion of it, and I just want to dispel any awkward feeling that you might have right now. You don't need to sway, and you don't need to clap, but you can if you can. So the song is called Yesh Lanu Koach, and it's actually, I believe, the first song that our community choir, Shirenu, learned. And it is based on a South African melody. And even though I don't sing with the choir, I got a copy of the music because I live with somebody who does. And it goes something like this. Yesh lanu koach, hallelujah, yesh lanu ruach, hallelujah, yesh lanu koach, hallelujah, yesh lanu ruach, hallelujah. Okay, thank you all. So of course, because we are a Jewish crowd, the singing will stop and the talking will continue. And what that means is we have strength and we have spirit. And so I want to speak about the source of our strength upgraded to power. But first, I want to say a word about what it means to feel powerless. So I suspect that recently, many of us, for many different reasons, have been feeling powerless. One thing which makes us powerless is to tune into the news. We tune into the news and we are plunged into circumstances that we believe we can affect very little, that we have very little control and power over. And if I were to ask you, have you been accessing the news less recently than you used to? I suspect many here would say, indeed, I have. So it's not a new thing. Roughly 60 years ago, Simon and Garfunkel sang a song called 7 O'Clock News. And during the song, they have a newscaster who is reciting the news that has taken place during the summer of 1966. And the news includes a comedian who died of an overdose, and a man who murdered 9 nurses, and a president telling the country that the Vietnam War is likely to last for at least 5 more years. And while all of this is being recited by the newscaster, Simon and Garfunkel are gently singing the song Silent Night, Holy Night. And the contrast between the news, which is disturbing to say the least, and the song which presents this hope of gentility and silence is a very strong contrast. So of course, I'm sorry to report, pun intended, that now the news is still very distressing. And not only that, but when we think about our lives, we can feel powerless. Think about aspects of our lives over which we have very little control. Think about the people around us who we wish would listen to us, and they don't. And that also can make us feel less than powerful. The good news is that the distressing part of my sermon is over, because we come from a tradition that helps us find our power. Jewish people are not allowed to continue to feel powerless. With huge gratitude to Rabbi Eckstein, this sermon has 3 parts. Part 1. Our tradition encourages us to start the day with gratitude and confidence. If you are like me, you occasionally find yourself up in the middle of the night and you are worried about all kinds of things that are going on nationally and internationally, things that you said wrong and you wish you had said differently, people who are upset with you for one reason or another. So I lie at night. I look up at the ceiling, which is a great way to fall back to sleep. And eventually, morning comes, and I stop looking at the ceiling. And notwithstanding all of the anxiety that I have and the feelings of powerlessness that I have, I am required in the morning to say certain words by our tradition. Modeh ani lefanecha, melech chai v'kayam, shehechezarta bi nishmati bechemla rabba emunatecha. I give thanks to you, living and everlasting ruler, for you have restored my soul with mercy. Great is your faithfulness. The words connect us to our power. We might want to start the day by complaining. These words tell us, first say modeh, thank you. We might want to get dragged down by our sense that life is unfair and there is misery in the world and in our lives. Our tradition says you must consider chemla, which is the mercy that exists in the world. We might want to pull the covers back over our heads and not get out of bed. Our tradition in 12 words tells us you have a neshama, you have a spark, you have a soul. Wake up and use that spark and use that soul. I think of everything that's going on in Israel. I think of everything that's going on here in the United States. I think of polarization. I think of people who are in serious danger. I think of violence and famine. I think of children that didn't ask for any of these things and are growing up in a world that is seriously tainted by misery. But my tradition says, get out of bed. You have a neshama. You have a soul. It's time to use it. And the question is, how? How do we use our neshama? Part 2. Our tradition urges us to do something to help someone else each and every day. So I'll offer you from the Shulchan Aruch the words of Rabbi Yosef Karo, Tov litain pruta le'ani kodem kol tfilah shene'emar, ani b'tzedek echezeh panecha. What you're supposed to do is offer a coin to a poor person before you begin to pray. Before you start to pray, offer a coin to a poor person so that you can face God b'tzedek, having done justice, having done the right thing. Now, that helping someone else, allowing somebody to have a moment that is better than that person would have had without you, is a source of your power. And here too, the action provides a corrective. We might think the world's problems are huge. Where should I begin? This tradition tells us, find one person. We might think, who am I to be able to change another person's life? Our tradition says, don't just change it, just give something, give a coin. Something is better than nothing. We might think, I have my own troubles. How can I find the strength to help somebody else? When I was in college, I had a really hard time freshman year I had a crisis of imposter syndrome that was extraordinary. I had no clue how the university I attended had made the biggest mistake in its 300-year history and selected Howard Stecker from Fair Lawn, New Jersey. I suffered with enormous self-deprecating anxiety. And at one point at Hillel, somebody came over to me and said, I hear that you know how to lead the Friday night service. Can you help me learn how to lead? And I sat and I helped somebody else learn the prayers. And I have to tell you, nothing my family said, wow, you're amazing. I didn't hear it. Friends of mine said, oh, stop being so down in the dumps. I didn't hear it. Applying myself to help another human being do something, that began slowly to lift the fog of my self-deprecation so that I gradually was able to find my own power, paradoxically, as I was helping someone else to find theirs. Do something every day to help someone. You might not be able to bring about world peace. You can help another human being have a better day. Maybe we advocate for people in need. Maybe we contribute to a worthwhile cause. Listen to a friend who wants to pour their hearts out. The gift of listening is one of the best gifts that we can provide. Maybe you drive someone from point A to point B every day. We ought to give something to someone. This helps us to recognize the extent of our power in a good way. Part 3. Our tradition urges us to understand the world more deeply. So in the Amidah that we recite daily, we say, Ata chonen la'adam da'at. You, God, you give us perception. You give us the capacity to understand. Don't shy away from difficult realities. Don't hide from what's going on. That is not an authentic Jewish response to complexity. Me personally, I listen to a range of podcasts. I read analyses deeply. Lately, I have found the podcast that Yossi Klein Halevi and Daniel Hartman of the Hartman Institute have provided to be helpful. I love to read what an Israeli author, Sarah Tuttle Singer, writes. There are others that I could share, and I'm sure you have your own. I also read biographies and I read history because it's just interesting to find echoes in prior times of the challenges that we're living through today. So my advice is don't retreat. My advice is try to be as thoughtful and reflective as you can about what it is that is going on around us. And I have found overall that everything I'm reading sharpens a theme that I have spoken about dozens of times in the last year. We who identify as Jewish people need to do whatever we can to support ourselves. And we also need to do whatever we can to support anyone who is vulnerable and in need. That is a message that becomes more and more sharpened for me. What's the balance? How do you do it? Not easy. But that's something which emerges because I have not retreated, because I have tried to use my da'at, my perception, to understand more deeply. And what is true of national and international events is also true of our lives. It's good to try to understand, why are you having the same fight with so-and-so over and over and over again, to be self-reflective personally as well. So our tradition guides us to find our power, to face each day with gratitude and confidence, to do something good for someone else, to try to understand more deeply. And now I'm going to bring us to conclusion by sharing a story, which I hope you'll find inspiring in terms of the challenge of finding the sources of your own power. Just over a year ago, 6 young hostages were executed by Hamas. One of them, named Hirsch Goldberg Polin, a lover of music, an ardent soccer fan, a supporter of dialogue, a hoper and supporter for and of peace. A few weeks ago, his father, Jonathan, spoke at his yahrzeit. And Jonathan told a story. Jonathan said that when he and his daughter were walking in Jerusalem, a young person came up to him and said, Abba shel Hirsch, efshar laharot lecha mashehu. Hirsch's dad, can I show you something? And Hirsch's dad, Jonathan, said yes. And this young person took out his phone and he said to Jonathan, I use a photo of your son Hirsch as my lock screen. And he showed Jonathan the photo. And this young person said, every morning when I wake up, the first photo I see is the photo of your son Hirsch. And seeing him reminds me to ask myself, what can I do today to be a better person? And what can I do today to make the world better? So I'm asking us, what are we going to do each day to make ourselves and the world better? Because that's the source of our power. It's no secret that we Jews don't do a great job with silent nights. We're not so good with silence. We do a much better job with noisy new days. So we're going to wake up and identify the beautiful neshama that we each have. We're going to wake up and figure out what can we do to help someone. We're going to wake up and figure out what can we do to try to make sense of an overwhelming and extremely complicated world. Yesh lanu koach, hallelujah. We have the power to put our souls to good use, to do something good for someone else, to gain new insights. May this new year in which we find ourselves be a new year in which every day we find and we use our power. Shana Tova.